Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I've been asked to speak to you about Sadaqah. My topic is the conditions of Sadaqah, character of Sadaqah, or character as the result of Sadaqah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Nahmaduhu wa nusallihi ala rasulihil kareem. Amma ba'd. Did you know that Sadaqah is a win-win-win advantage? Let me tell you why. A believer is always cognizant of self-purification, called tazkiyah. He or she always explores ways to go nearer and nearer to Allah Ta'ala, seeking knowledge. With these desires in their hearts, believers depend upon Allah Ta'ala to walk Allah by staying close to Quran and the example of the Prophet ﷺ to fulfill their obligations to Allah Ta'ala, because they understand that the commands of Allah Ta'ala are entrustments that must be guarded and honored until Allah Ta'ala calls them back. In Quran and from the Prophet ﷺ, Allah Ta'ala confirms that the benefit of fulfilling and guarding the trusts He has given is self-reform and self-purification for the believers. Sadaqah is one entrustment. In Surah Rum, Surah 30, Ayah 37 to 40, Allah Ta'ala asks the believers to prove their faith when He tells them to pay attention to the gifts He has provided for them by way of provisions, sustenance, and faculties. Perchance they will be grateful and give away sacrifice when He demands. When He lists how to show gratitude with Sadaqah, He says in the English translation of the 4 ayat, "Do they not see that Allah Ta'ala makes ample provision for whom He pleases or straightens? Most surely there are signs in this for a people who believe. Then give to the near of kin his due, and to the needy and the wayfarer. This is best for those who desire Allah's pleasure, and these it is who are successful. And whatever you lay out as usury, so that it may increase in the properties of men, it shall not increase with Allah Ta'ala. And whatever you give in charity, desiring Allah's pleasure, it is these persons that shall get manifold. Allah is He who created you, then gave you sustenance, then He causes you to die, then brings you to life. Is there any of your associate gods who does aught of it? Glory be to Him, and exalted be He above what they associate with Him." These ayah infer warnings to the believers to purify their character so that their outward deeds, like Sadaqah, are not wasted. The ayah tells the believers, do not disdain Sadaqah by associating partners in your wealth, being miserly, fearing loss, or committing arrogance by saying, Allah will provide. In Surah Rum, Allah lists His provisions on you. Then He subscribes which actions need to be purged in order to nurture virtue and to go near to Allah Ta'ala. Allah Ta'ala commands, do not associate partners, do not divide and become schismatic, do not be ungrateful, do not withhold the entrustments when Allah Ta'ala asks it from you for the wayfarer, traveler, and the needy, those who are temporarily depraved of their necessities, or the oppressed who cannot fight for themselves. Allah Ta'ala says these characters are opposite belief, while their opposites lead to success. Humanity is the vicegerency which needs to worship Allah Ta'ala. Impediments to that worship need to be removed. Allah Ta'ala has given us His words, Quran, and His final Prophet ﷺ to assist us in traveling the path, while at the same time presenting it, the path, to all humanity. Self-reformation purification is full of lessons, training, tests, and rewards. The systems of Sadaqah is one of those institutions that trains the character of the believer, whether he or she be one who receives or one who gives Sadaqah. A win-win advantage. Those who receive Sadaqah are tested by Allah Ta'ala with deprivations to measure their commitment and loyalty to Allah Ta'ala when they are straitened. Their needs are unfulfilled or scarce. Allah Ta'ala commands the needy to be patient, determined, and certain for the reward of increased faith shown by the attributes of perseverance, steadfastness, and tawakkul, reliance on Allah Ta'ala. Their endearing patience becomes a banner for Islam, and that character showcases the greatness of Allah Ta'ala, models the Prophet, and affirms Islamic monotheism. Also, those who receive Sadaqah are a mercy from Allah Ta'ala, as they warrant opportunities for Muslims to become givers and get rewards. A win-win advantage. But the giver is equally examined. The givers are those who have the means to relieve the burden of those human beings who suffer hardship, who travel, who are ill, who are grieved, or those human beings who are temporarily or permanently deprived. However, what the giver has are entrustments conferred upon them by Allah Ta'ala. At any time, Allah Ta'ala may ask for their return in some form of charity. This sadaqah is an opportunity for the givers to prove their faith in Allah Ta'ala by returning the entrustment without complaint when He demands. Obedience is the test for these believers because they are asked to sacrifice with a service, a character, or a financial sum that is under their guard. Allah Ta'ala knows what He has provided for them, and their loyalty to Allah Ta'ala compels them to give when they are asked. A win-win advantage. Simply, when Allah Ta'ala asks the believer to return any form of what He has given him or her, be it property, be it a character, be it some money, a believer relinquishes it without question because the giver knows what he or she has is an entrustment from Allah Ta'ala. To caution, in Surah Ma'un, Allah Ta'ala warns the believer of those who withhold rather than give. He says, "Have you seen the one who denies the recompense? For that is the one who drives away the orphan and does not encourage the feeding of the poor. So woe to those who pray, but who are heedless of their prayers, those who make show of their deeds and withhold simple assistance." A believer's wealth, property, and person belongs to Allah Ta'ala. All belongs to Allah Ta'ala, your creator, your king, your sovereign. He is to you all the beautiful names He has revealed. With the giver is the money, the character, or the service. And Allah Ta'ala knows what each and every one of His servants has within his or her capacity to return as sadaqah. In turn, when the giver renders sadaqah for Allah Ta'ala, the writing angels record an exceptional deed upon the giver's scroll. But Allah Ta'ala gives the giver account in dunya with a manifold increase in that which was given, whether it be an increase in good character, in an honorable reputation, in money, or removing injustices, while simultaneously, like the receiver, Allah purifies the Muslim's Islam, Iman, and Ihsan to bring him or her nearer to Allah Ta'ala. A win-win-win advantage. When I say sadaqah as money, service, or character, I am listing its categories. Since Allah Ta'ala asks His servants to give only that burden they can bear, and the needs of the needy are different, sadaqah has far-reaching opportunities underneath these classifications. For example, some may need money. A financial sadaqah may include a specific amount to pay an immediate debt. A sudden loss in income may need a temporary sadaqah for bills, etc. A person may not have enough cash to pay for a purchase. A homeless person is begging for change. A specific amount of money given to a friend, a relative, to purchase something that they need or even something they desire. A monetary sum to a charity, payment for a service when the service was free, etc. A service sadaqah may include using your strength for someone who is weak, giving good advice, volunteering, using your expertise to solve a problem, serving others, sharing something you own with someone else, giving someone directions, teaching someone something good, enjoining the good and forbidding the evil, helping your mother, father, or others finish a task, smiling and making someone happy when they are sad, and so forth. All good character is sadaqah because it improves the human condition and it is a show of gratitude for what Allah Ta'ala has provided you. And if we ponder on these lists, we can see that all the actions are between one person and another to assist a community. A win-win-win advantage. Even single tasks of sadaqah between two people, like a husband feeding his wife and vice versa, has such an endearing impact to create a positive memory, bring happiness, provide a necessity, and increase such love between the two people that will inevitably offset difficult times, influence how they treat their children, and model a marriage relationship for the community. A win-win advantage. To further illustrate, let me tell you a story. When I was 16, I lived in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I lived with my mother and my sister. My mother was finishing a postgraduate degree, so we all were struggling students. I always thought my mother was a hardworking financially only poor woman, although she did not make me feel in any way deprived. We lived in a row house common in the urban cities in the East Coast. In our house, it was a long walk between the front door and the kitchen. Our dining area was a small corridor separating the kitchen and the hallway. My mother purchased a wood table and benches for our dining table. It suited us. That night, we sat down at that table to a dinner of corn and something else. I can't remember any other dishes. It may have just been corn. It was summertime in the Philly heat and humidity, so we left the front door open. We put a box fan turned backwards for reverse air cooling, let the fan pull out hot air and pull in cool air in front of the screen door. But the hum of the fan was too far away to disturb our conversation or stop us from hearing anyone knock at the door. And we did hear someone knock at the door. I was the youngest and always so curious. I had to go to the door, but I moved cautiously, for it was North Philly at night in the ghetto. As I approached the screen door, there was just enough light from our living room to create a half shadow of a white man at the door. I could see this partially blonde hair streaked white, so I could see he wasn't young, but I could also see he wasn't too old. He looked travel-weary. As I went closer, I saw he was dressed simply in pants and shirt, without a backpack or a sack. He still looked like a traveler, but there was something clean about his person, even with the disheveled hair and signs of homelessness with him. I got to the door, but I left a safe distance between the screen, him, and me. I looked at him when he said, "Do you have some food?" I was stunned. Never did I experience a beggar, and it was not common for beggars to roam our streets. Leave aside, come to the door, knock, and ask for food. I backed up, turned, and like a messenger, I went to my mother and repeated his exact words he said, "Do you have some food?" My mother and my sister looked up in sync. "What?" my mother said, as if she didn't hear me, so I repeated. He said, "Do you have some food?" Then my sister looked at my mother as if to say, "Mom, what are you going to do?" My mother didn't ask any more questions. She just took her plate, added some more corn, put a fork with it, and said, "Take this to him." I was silenced by her unquestioning resolve to give him what he needed. I took the plate of corn, all we had left, to the door, unlatched the screen, served him the plate with the fork, relatched the screen, stepped back, and waited. The man turned just slightly to eat, and I watched him as he cleaned the plate. When he was finished, he looked up while holding the completely clean plate with the fork on top, gesturing, "Here." I unlatched the screen, took the plate, closed the screen, relatched the screen. Then he walked down our front steps and disappeared, literally disappeared into the street. Into the street lights. I remember the story as if it was today. I will never forget my mother's unquestioning sacrifice of all that she owned that night, the man's virtuous humility, and my sister's smile. From this experience, I do not think about who asks, only what or how much I will give. This was a win-win-win advantage that is still affecting my heart and patterning how I think of Sadaqah today. I'm sure every one of you has your own personal stories of Sadaqah that affected your heart and made a difference in terms of how you think about charity, whether you be the giver or whether you be the receiver. Now is the time to examine them and say to yourself, who did I help? What did I learn? Did I share for the pleasure of Allah Ta'ala? Did I increase in my iman from the experience? Can I repeat the same act and get the same feeling and perhaps an equal or better reward from Allah Ta'ala? Does my lifestyle include regular sadaqah? What are my feelings about giving back to Allah Ta'ala or receiving from Allah Ta'ala when He demands? Do I shirk that duty? Finally, from this lesson, take this away. Sadaqah is a collective advantage because it not only gives reward to the giver and the receiver, but it benefits all humanity by way of removing poverty, hunger, and debt, or impressing a person so much that they want to make regular sadaqah to please Allah Ta'ala their lifestyle. However, for everyone, the impetus of Sadaqah is from Allah Ta'ala to purify individual believers and bring them closer to Him. That is why Sadaqah in Islam is a win-win-win advantage. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Subhanallahi wa bihamdi. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta. Nastaghfiruka wa atubu ilayh.